And that's where Question Time wraps up. That's where we bring in our political editor, Andrew Clennell, on Afternoon Agenda with me today. Andrew, let's start with the news, the big news of the day, which sort of happened, been quite a few stories, but the Alice Springs alcohol ban confirmed during Question Time. The Prime Minister responded.
As predicted, dare I say it, on Sunday Agenda. So extra money, I predicted that, $250 million as it turns out, and the return of bans and some reasonably high bars. If you want to overturn those bans in these communities, you'll need to produce a plan, you'll need to have it approved, and you'll need 60% of that community to vote for an overturning of that ban. So given what we've seen, hopefully there's not much of that. And interesting, the Prime Minister there, they were hopeful Northern Territory government would do it first. They have, so they didn't have to intervene. The feds didn't have to come over the top. I'm sure that $250 million had a bit to do with that, quite frankly. Here was the PM talking about it in Question Time.
The Northern Territory government will legislate new alcohol restrictions when they meet next week, so that Northern Territory town camps and communities return to an opt-out system. The dry zones will remain in place until an approved community alcohol management plan is developed and agreed to by the liquor controller in the Northern Territory, and then it will need to be put to a local community with a 60% threshold. And that's why we have also announced a Central Australia plan for a better, safer future for Central Australia, with $250 million of investment on top of what we announced just a week ago. That will include improved community safety and cohesion through more youth engagement and diversion programs, along with improved CCTV and lighting. It will improve job creation. It will include on-country learning. Importantly, preventing and addressing issues caused by fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. Better services, investing in families, investing in increased domestic violence services.
The Prime Minister there in Question Time. Andrew, big focus on the RBA this week, tomorrow, and the Shadow Treasurer tried to target the Prime Minister on that issue today.
Not the first time they've gone for detail, have they, after his gaffes on that during the election campaign. But the thing about Question Time, you've always got a note to refer to, and Anthony Albanese got to it eventually. This was the subject we know is so big to the economy. These people who during COVID, Kieran, got fixed rates, very low rates, and mid-year they're jumping off that cliff. So Angus Taylor, Shadow Treasurer, asked the Prime Minister how many, then he interjected, then Anthony Albanese finally gave the answer.
How many Australian households are set to face higher mortgages this year when they move from fixed rate loans to variable rate loans?
We know that this is an issue, and that is why we are doing all that we can, just as we did last October, to produce a responsible budget.
Mr. Speaker, if this was a priority for the Prime Minister, he'd know the answer to the question.
Resume your seat.
There will be an increased pressure on around about 800,000 Australians.
Now, a former Labor leader got a bit of a run today in Question Time too, particularly targeting the Robo-Debt Royal Commission.
Bill Shorten, and we haven't done much on the Robo-Debt Royal Commission, but some serious issues raised there, particularly around the conduct of Alan Tudge, Scott Morrison, Christian Porter, in letting this unlawful scheme go ahead. We know people suicided when they were wrongly charged debts, varying degrees of whether people knew it was unlawful or not. Bill Shorten really targeting the Liberal frontbencher, current Liberal frontbencher here, Alan Tudge.
During his evidence to the Commission, the member for Aston acknowledged that, 1, he was responsible for the administration of the Robo-Debt scheme between February 2016 and December 2017. 2, he knew that Robo-Debt produced inaccurate debt notices. 3, he did not think to raise questions about the legality of the scheme for the duration of his time as the minister. 4, he requested the personal files of 52 Centrelink recipients who had complained in the media in the period between Christmas 2016 and January 2017. 5, he did think, however, to get legal advice about accessing the personal files of the 52 public complainants, as opposed to seeking advice as to the lawfulness of the whole scheme. Now, the member for Aston did pay forensic attention to people complaining about the scheme, but never the complaints. He investigated the messengers, but never the message. The last word should be left to his former media advisor, who put it better than most. The minister requested the file of every person who appeared in the media in order to make other victims think twice before coming forward. What a fine specimen of coalition ministerial responsibility.